Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On this channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today I have another book review for you, and it is finally Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. If you guys aren't new to my channel, you may have seen my book tag from the start of this year. If you haven't, I'll pop a link above to that now, where I said that this was a book I definitely had to read this year. And I'm glad I did that, because doing that book tag has definitely made me remember that I must read this. Finally, it's been on my shelf since high school. I think I'm going to do that book tag again for 2025 because it puts your ass in gear to get through your books. And I am pleasantly surprised. I thought this was going to be a really hard read. I don't know. I thought it was going to be... I enjoy Pride and Prejudice, but when you read a book and because of how it's written, it takes a bit more focus or a bit more time to get into every time. I thought it was going to be like that, and it wasn't. It is all told, so not much, I don't want to say emotion because it is at the same time. It's from our protagonist Sayuri's point of view, so you get a lot of internal dialogue, which makes you feel really connected to the character. It was a difficult book to review, which you'll know if you read my review on Goodreads. But as always with my book reviews, let me read you guys the blurb first. Before we get into that, don't forget, if you like what you see, to subscribe to this channel. Your continued support means a lot, so thank you guys so much. This is a rare and utterly engaging story. It tells the extraordinary tale of a geisha summoning up a quarter century, from 1929 to the post-war years of Japan's dramatic history, and opening a window into a half-hidden world of eroticism and enchantment, exploitation and degradation. It has a lot of reviews, endlessly fascinating, a narrative that is both gripping and beautifully paced, a wonderful read from The Observer. This is a high-wire act. Rarely has a world so closed and foreign been evoked with such natural assurance. New Yorker. This is an epic tale and a beautiful evocation of a rapidly vanishing world at times, and Sayuri's memories reveal Golden to have great gifts of imaginative empathy, fascinating from The Independent. Now, this book came out in 1997, and this version is from 2005, which is why it is the movie cover, and on the back that is from the movie. It was a book that obviously sold rapidly because it got made into a film almost as soon as it was released, and I loved the film in high school, and that's why I obviously got the book back then. It's both fascinating and problematic at the same time. I'm not going to even try to review this spoiler free. Apologies. It's been out a long time and the movie's been out a long time. To talk about it, I just have to go through it. So let's get into first my quotes from this book. So my first mention, it's not a quote, but page 15 to 16. The descriptions are really fun in this book throughout. Now, I know on Goodreads a few people said it was too flowery for them. I enjoyed it because it kind of emphasized the fact that as a geisha, you are trained to make the mundane more beautiful. Chio, who is Sayuri before she becomes a geisha, refers to their father's face as a tree at the front and like a smooth egg at the back, and I just find the comparisons that they make are so fun. So I loved her descriptions of other people and other things around. Other people found it flowery. I don't know, I'm being distracted because there are two magpies playing in a window of one of my neighbor's houses. I don't know what they're doing, but they're cute. Anyway, my next quote, page 45, is a good description of how life can just hit you in the face. I was without my father, without my mother, without even the clothing I'd always worn. Yet somehow the thing that startled me most after a week or two had passed was that I had in fact survived. I thought it was just a good way to describe that. Page 66. So the book is littered with interesting historical facts. Now, I know from reading reviews on Goodreads, which is why I say this is quite problematic. Japanese people have obviously read this book and reviewed it, and they say it is not accurate, that it has problems and discrepancies. If you read this obviously from a Western's point of view, you don't necessarily know this, so you take on board what this says as fact. Now, it is a piece of fiction. I can only say be wary, and this is why it is both fascinating and problematic at the same time. I can't tell you what is correct or incorrect in this book, but it is littered with little historic things. For example, on page 66, it talks about the difference in what men find alluring. Now, I do find that it is comparing something that the men are finding to learn at different times in history. So the comparison is, Japanese men, as a rule, feel about a woman's neck and throat the same way that men in the West might feel about a woman's legs. This is why geisha wear the collars of their kimonos so low in the back. Golden compares this to how Western women wear short skirts. Now, this would have been in the 1930s. In the 1930s in the UK, women did not wear short skirts. So we are comparing a level of the sexualization of the woman's body based on a short skirt and the back of the neck. It's not comparable because legs weren't shown in that time in Europe. So maybe you could compare the back of the neck with the ankles of a Western woman. I don't know, but this is kind of what I mean. Take it loosely, but all cultures have different beauty standards. I know that when I lived in Korea, you could wear very short items of clothing, which we would find showed too much butt here in the UK. However, in Korea, you shouldn't show cleavage, whereas in the UK, cleavage is just out. There are different beauty standards and different times have different standards, but it was just a comparison of why geisha wore what they wear. Page 124. We none of us find as much kindness in this world as we should. Yes, chairman. So this is the chairman. It doesn't tell you in the blurb of this book really what this book is about. And I was telling my partner when I was trying to describe this book, because he's not interested in reading this, so I could talk to him freely about it. The overall plot in this book is about our protagonist, Chiyo, who is sold by her father, but also really by the head of their village, I would say, to become a geisha in Kyoto. And it's about her training to be a geisha. It's about her surviving becoming a geisha, surviving the war, and it's also a love story. The love story in it is quite problematic because it is the story of Chiyo meeting the chairman. Now, the chairman would have been in his 20s or something when he sees a young girl crying on the bridge. He stops and comforts this girl and buys her sweet ice. From that day, Chiyo is infatuated with the chairman, cannot stop thinking about him. And the whole goal when she becomes a geisha is for herself to obviously earn a living and be alive, but also to meet the chairman again. And she wants the chairman to be her danna, which is sort of like the closest a geisha will get to a husband. It's a man who pays for you, who is the only one who is allowed to have sex with you, and they provide your everything you need. So they give you a place to stay, they pay for all of your lessons, all of your clothing, all of that. Kind of the idea of a sugar daddy here in the West. That's what Chiyo wants. And that's what this book is about. It's a historical romance to an extent. That's problematic for me because that is an older man and a child and an unrealistic view. Yes, a child would see the kindness, I presume. No one's ever been kind to her before. I struggle to believe that one moment of kindness would literally infatuate a child forevermore. Bit creepy. As a young girl, I could say for me that would not be true, but I know everyone's different, so I found it problematic. You might not. It's historical fiction. Historical fictions have always had a tad bit of leeway. Fantasies had a lot of leeway, which apparently is not correct. Women did not marry when they were 13, apparently, historically in the West, but they've had license for writing that for years. It's creepy. It will never stop being creepy for me. But that is the overall story, sort of plot in this book. Page 135. I suppose Hatsumomos pays her no more attention than she would a leaf that has fluttered into the courtyard. At this point, Sayuri, I believe she's Sayuri at this point. Maybe she's still Chiyo. A beautiful description. Just gorgeous. Page 156. The world has changed a good deal since, but when I was a child, a girl who disobeyed her elders was soon put in her place. Now, I like the reference to the time period. I'm saying how it's changed. It's a historical fiction, but he is admitting things have changed and not saying that this is correct, which I did like. Page 160 is just a description of a tea ceremony. It's a beautiful description because the tea ceremony is very important in Japan, and I found one bit quite funny. It also shows the age of this book. The tea itself is made from tea leaves ground into a powder and then whisked with boiled water into a frothy green mix we call matcha, which is very unpopular with foreigners. "Oh Golden, how wrong you now are," because matcha is all over the place now. I myself adore matcha. I did get introduced to it living in Asia. I lived in Korea, so that is when I started to drink matcha for definite. But I got really into it when I moved back to the West, and it is all over in cafes now, and I'm very happy about that. Golden, page 167. This is about the fame of Mamaha, who is the elder sister or the trainer of Sayuri. She takes Sayuri on and trains her to be a geisha after her geisha house abandons her because Hatsumomo puts her in too much debt. Mamaha becomes famous because she is depicted in a sort of travel brochure of the time of a geisha telling people to come to Japan. This is before the war, and it says Chaplin and Sunyatsen and later Ernest Hemingway, who got very drunk and said the red lips on her white face made him think of blood in the snow. I love the idea that Hemingway met a geisha. Now, it makes the story feel real. It's not historically correct. I searched to see if Hemingway had referenced geisha. I can't find anything. Do comment down below if this is true or not. But this is historical fiction. It's based on historic events. It's not necessarily true, but the mention of a real writer made it feel real. Page 170. I found the way of how Sayuri practices the shamisen really interesting because it's also how I would practice. I found a way of practicing the shamisen whilst running errands. I did this by practicing a song in my mind while picturing clearly how my left hand should shift on the neck and how the plectrum should strike the string. This is something I definitely do as a musician and what I used to do as a dancer as well, and I know my partner does it too. You can practice without touching your instrument, and sometimes, to be honest, putting the instrument down and doing this makes you play better after than if you just keep playing it again and again and again. Not always, but sometimes taking a break away from the instrument does work. Page 251. A sketch of a woman from the back looking to one side and holding an umbrella, except that a cat had evidently stepped in ink and walked across it, leaving perfectly formed paw prints. The cat himself was curled up asleep at the moment on a pile of dirty clothes. If you're not new to my channel, it's a cat. You know I'm gonna love that quote. I love how a cat has ruined an artist's work. Technically, made it better. Page 288. Well, the Baron said at last, I suppose I'd forgotten now that you mention it. We certainly can't have any little barons running around now, can we? I enjoyed in this book these semi-open discussions of abortion and birth control for geisha, who are basically, they're not prostitutes, they are geisha, but they do sleep with a damna. I know I'm butchering that, I do apologize. So I love how it does mention abortion as almost a fact of life for the geisha. I enjoyed how in this society of women they did talk about it, and how this man has basically said, oh, we don't want any little barons walking around, so yeah, I guess you gotta go to that appointment. And my final quote is page 371. I never seek to defeat the man I am fighting, he explained. I seek to defeat his confidence. A mind troubled by doubt cannot focus on the course to victory. Two men are equals, true equals, only when they both have equal confidence. I just found this so wise and so true. That's all my quotes from this book. We'll now go into my overall review, and as I said, I found this really difficult to review because it's all telling and yet it's quite easy to read. It's a historical fiction, but it's also quite problematic. I can't tell you what's correct, what's not. Another thing that it says as a historical thing is that the geisha used a face cream that had nightingale poo in it. We know that the geisha makeup, the white face paint at one point was poisonous to you, but so was the white face paint that we used in the West as well. So we all were poisoning ourselves with makeup at some point in history. So I can't really tell you if it's right or not. So it can be quite problematic, but I did find it very hard to review because of all of this. It has a great internal dialogue throughout from Sayuri's point of view. You can really understand why she's doing what she's doing, but I also struggle to understand why she's infatuated. Why is this love story in there? And it does gloss over a few things. It does mention the war. It does mention the war with Korea, which Japan occupied Korea. It kind of is a little bit blasé about that, but then it is from the point of view of Sayuri, who was not privy to the information that we now know. So it's correct in what she knows. So I don't know. I just found the overall plot very odd indeed. So enjoyment, it wasn't hard to read. I wasn't thinking about it generally when I wasn't reading it, but it wasn't difficult. I read it really quick. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 for enjoyment. For world building, again, I don't know how accurate it was. For me, it's a 10 out of 10. I'm not from Japan. I've never lived in the old wooden houses of Japan. So I want to give it a 10. But someone who lives in Japan might say otherwise. Plot, it's problematic. It's about someone surviving. I kind of want to give it a 5 out of 10. It's quite odd. Writing style, 7 out of 10. Originality, now I haven't read any other book about geisha. There's probably a lot out there. I have read books based in Japan or based in Asia. I read a lot of Japanese translated literature now. For its time period, I do want to give it 10 out of 10. Representation, now again, I don't know. On the basis that I don't know, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. And characterization, I'll give it 8 out of 10. Overall, I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5 because I just can't place it. I really can't, guys. I do apologize. In comparison to the film, as I said, I adored the film. The film does do things differently. So for example, in this, Dr. Crab, creepy as hell. Dr. Crab collects the mizuage of geisha, so their virginity. Terrifying. But not only that, he collects the blood from the first time penetration. Now, it's inaccurate. You don't always bleed the first time, but anyway, he collects the blood from virgins. It's creepy as hell. It's creepy in the film, obviously, because it's a guy paying a shit ton of money. That's prostitution to an extent, so not unusual, really. Well, creepy in here. So I did like how it toned down that creepiness to an extent. It made it more palatable. I miss the other characters in the film that are in this, like the artist, that they're not in the film. Some other guys aren't. And also the representation of the American soldiers. So in this, they're just sort of part of the background. In the film, they make it more of a big deal and they use an American soldier to try to pay for sex from Sayuri, which doesn't happen in the book. I don't know. I'm going to say just for conciseness, I preferred the film, but I think it might be on par with this. It was a good adaptation, I think. But accuracy, I couldn't tell you. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you like to see as soon as I upload, click the little bell down below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Tumblr. I post no bookish pictures as well as my writing tips and unboxings on there. This was a really hard book for me to review. It's not one I'm going to reread, so it will be leaving my book collection. But I am very glad I did read it. And thanks for watching, guys. Bye!